Yeah.
Preparing to live stream this webinar. Buffer bar, buffer bar. Ralph, you know the restaurants Olmsted and Maison Yaki?
I know Olmsted.
Yeah, I've been texting a lot. That's my childhood friend who runs it, and he's going to be
nice.
on the call too. So
Cool.
he's been doing a lot of advocacy, trying to figure this out. Okay, here's the link. I'm gonna, yeah, the live stream is working on YouTube. I'm just having Phil, our graphic design and just generally brilliant person, figure out the redirect so that if people go to emilyforassembly.com/YouTube, that's where they're going to end up.
Okay.
He's setting that up now.
You let me know when you want me to start, Andrew.
I will, yeah. My guess is we'll probably start at around, you know, some participants are already starting to come in the channel here. Hello, everybody. But we're probably just like last week, maybe aim to start at 12:05.
Okay.
Didn't you just mention Howard Dean, Emily? For some reason he's trending on Twitter. I wonder if he has.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that's what I always assume when I see somebody famous trending on Twitter now. It's sort of dark. I don't know. Choosing not to click on that. Our small channel.
Saw that Boris Johnson is positive with coronavirus. That's crazy.
I saw that, yeah.
Wow.
And he was one of these people who had been really downplaying. I mean, they were, you know, for the first couple of weeks there, they were proposing that like absurd herd immunity idea where they were just going to let everyone get it and see where the chips fall.
Well, that's what Trump is thinking about right now. He's like, just I want to be, I need the country open back by Easter. Let's just let this thing go. And I'm like, what? Are you kidding me? You're willing to.
Totally. They are.
Yeah.
They are. They are absolutely willing to do whatever it takes to keep, you know, profits flowing.
Yeah. I mean, it's crazy. I was looking at something about the CDC's prediction if we don't basically just shut down everything. And it's something about like 3 million Americans, which is 2% of the population, will die from this if we keep going at the continued rate that we're going.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Hey, folks, welcome everybody who's joining in right now. We're going to get started in just a few minutes. As the Zoom call starts filling up, we're also live streaming on YouTube. If you get kicked off of Zoom for whatever reason, that's emilyforassembly.com/YouTube. If you're in the Zoom channel, there's a Q&A panel, little button on the bottom of your Zoom screen you can open up, and that's where you can ask questions. If you're watching on YouTube, best way would be to tag us on Twitter at EM4Assembly. Or send me an email, andrew@emilyforassembly.com. I'll be having all those screens open, but we'll start in just a few minutes. Wish there was a way to have waiting music here.
Yes, I can put them on.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I could play it from my computer, but I have my headphones on. Making sure the YouTube is working. It is.
Okay, we'll get started in about 2 minutes.
Sure.
And again, a reminder for the new folks, if you have questions you want to ask about small business survival, how to support them, what we should be advocating for, and so on, there's a Q&A button on the bottom of your Zoom screen, or if you're watching on YouTube, email me at andrew@emilyforassembly.com or tag us on Twitter. We also have a question already teed up, which is great. We're going to get to audience questions in the second half of the webinar. Emily's going to frame the conversation a bit. We're going to hear from Raphael, and then we'll move there. But I see your questions. Thank you for asking them. Please keep them coming.
My window's open. Can you hear the noise outside?
Mm-mm.
Okay, good. Okay, I guess we'll get started. It's about 12:05. So welcome everyone. My name is Emily Gallagher. I am a candidate for state assembly in the 50th district, which is Williamsburg, Greenpoint, and parts of Clinton Hill. And we, throughout this unprecedented time, are hosting once a week COVID town halls every Friday at noon with a different topic of interest. And these town halls take slightly different forms each time. So last week, what we really had was a legal clinic with Sam Himmelstein. You can get the video of that on our website. And that was about what renters can do in this time. Today, we're having a slightly different format. We have a representative from an organization that represents bars and restaurants in North Brooklyn, Raffaello Van Kooten, who is going to be joining us and talking about his own business's experiences, as well as the general kind of outlook for small businesses in our area. And this is not a topic that I necessarily have answers for, and I'm not necessarily expecting Raf to have answers for either. But what we are looking to do is find out what we need to be advocating for from all of you. So we really want to have a forum where people feel free to share what their issues are, what their problems are, and we can work together to try to find the resources and the political will to make things happen, to make things easier and to help small businesses survive in North Brooklyn. North Brooklyn has so many different kinds of small businesses. It's one of the things that makes our community really dynamic and interesting. And it's been under threat for a while now, with the rents going up, with it being difficult to hold on to commercial leases without there being any kind of commercial stabilization for storefronts. So this was already a group of people that were under threat, and now COVID-19 has made it much more difficult to run these things. So one of the things that we're really interested in here is how to make our small business community still thrive after this is over and help support those who are enduring this now. The joblessness numbers came in, and this is just from people who are able to report to the government. We have over 3 million people in our country right now unemployed. And, you know, I have friends who have been trying to call and file for unemployment, and it's taken them over 300 calls to do that. and that doesn't include freelancers. It doesn't include a lot of service workers. It doesn't include gig workers. So that's not even the number of people who are unemployed right now. So this is really an amazingly new problem. And we are going to be tackling it as best we can. And one last thing before we get to our talk, I just want to remind everyone, I am not yet elected. Our election is on June 23rd. That means what I can do at this point is limited. I can advocate, and I can help brainstorm, and I can help community organize. If you want me to have a more powerful position where I can introduce and co-sponsor bills, you need to vote for me and get your friends to vote for me on June 23rd. So that is the background. Now, our guest is nonpartisan, and he is coming as an expert in the field. So Raf, feel free to introduce yourself.
Sure. My name is Rafael Van Kooten. Hi, everyone. I am a restaurateur here in Williamsburg, Brooklyn, and I sit on a group called BABAR, which is the Brooklyn Allied Bars and Restaurants. We are basically a regional organization in North Brooklyn. We're working basically to serve the interests of bars and restaurants, operators. We provide some mentoring, advocacy, some infrastructure assistance, and regulatory advice. What we strive to do is educate people, inspire, and support most of our bars and restaurant owners. It's kind of grown beyond that a little bit. We have some other businesses that have joined our group because it's been so important in Brooklyn to band together and try to stay afloat with all of the all of the elements that come our way constantly as small business owners, being treated basically as piggy banks. Our mission is to provide our members tools and resources to effectively sustain and grow their businesses. Since I've joined, I've seen so many changes in the last 5 years, not only just in Brooklyn, but in the rest of the city. And during this time, it's been so important to band together and be on platforms like this where the general public can get some information regarding what's going on inside of your local watering holes and restaurants. And beyond that, I think we aren't getting enough information out there to the public to really see the drastic measures or drastic impact that this is happening on our business. And I know it's only been about 2 weeks on our end, but it's going to have very detrimental effects going forward.
Sorry, we had some muting. The muting situation is under
It's
control.
weird. Yeah.
Okay, so so thanks for giving us that background. Why don't you tell us a bit about what's happened with your restaurants and what you felt your choices were when this all happened? Give us a short narrative of what you've been through.
Sure. So we got the word last week that we basically had no choice but to shut down our operations. And at one of our locations, Claudia's, we decided to do some to-go stabilization, which is what we were allowed to do. And at our coffee shops at Aleva, coffee shops basically act as a pickup kind of only situation. But I think the circumstances are just amounting to be too much to have that continue to go on and putting our staff at risk with what's happening. The consequences are just outweighing all of the benefits at the moment. So we've basically decided to shut down all of our operations. I believe right now, limiting Claudia's to certain things. And then our location 11 Greenpoint, we've decided to keep open because that's in a residential building. And it's just kind of nice to provide a little bit of reprieve for the people that live in that building. But overall, what has been happening to our businesses right now, it's going to be so detrimental. I was saying earlier that for every week that we're shut down, just so everyone's aware out there, it's basically going to take us a month to recoup from that 1 week of shutdown. Restaurants essentially are a cash in hand business. And if you don't have an income coming in to generate, to buy products and goods and give a service, then you kind of fall apart. You know, we all basically, when we start this thing, we have a year to 5 years to build our businesses up and get to a cash flow positive situation. It's just why everyone always says restaurants aren't for the faint of heart, because it does require a lot. And when a situation like this happens and we're forced to shut down, the impact that it has is going to be so overwhelming for most people, and the support that we're getting is kind of non-existent at the moment when it comes to people advocating for the necessities right now, which basically are rent forgiveness. That's the number one thing that we're all trying to fight for right now, and a lot of landlords don't understand what that means to us because they're worried about their mortgages, but they have mortgage forgiveness at the moment, and the way that they treat us is kind of insane. It is a landlord friendly city, and that's what it has become. I think one of the things I mentioned earlier was I hope that this has an impact on putting the shoe on the other foot, so to speak, where it's us as leaseors, we have the advantage and we have the power over helping to keep our businesses together and have longevity and put our energy, time, resources into something that we hope we can leave one day behind, and see those restaurants that are open, restaurants and bars that are open 30, 40 years, instead of the terms of our lease, which these days you'll be lucky if you get, 6-year lease signed, and then not have the landlord jack it up to about, 40, 50 times or percent of what you're paying now. So times are just, it's everything's up in the air, and we don't know what our industry will look like after this. The estimation right now is that 50% of our industry won't exist after this, so it's very detrimental.
So what are, beyond rent, which you mentioned, what are the other drains of revenue that you have right now, that the state could possibly assist in?
One of the big things for us is with the state liquor authority. They have a lot of power over our industry because there are things called 30-day terms with most liquor purveyors, and we have 30 days to pay our bills, which has always been kind of nice. When you first start off your business, you have 30 days to build up a revenue so that you can start paying your bills after that. But what that does to the industry is if you go past that 30 days, you get put on something called COD, which is cash on delivery, and your bills aren't excused. And in a situation like this, the SLA hasn't stepped in and said, you know what, we're going to forego that. And we're going to allow liquor companies to suspend putting anyone on this list. Because if that doesn't happen, when we reopen our doors, we won't be able to get products into the restaurants and bars to serve the public because these bills will be sitting out there waiting for payment. And the SLA hasn't stepped up and said, you know what, we're going to forgive all this. Everybody can put everything on hold. The other thing behind that is most of our payments are set up on automatic debits. And if a bill is due in the system and the SLA is saying this bill is past due, it will automatically come out and keep debiting. And majority of our companies, our liquor companies, are saying they want to help us, but it's the state regulation that's in place that will not allow us to not charge you and not take us out. So what you're creating there is now this battle, because most of us have gone and frozen all of our bank accounts and not allowed any debits to come out. So that's going to force us to be delinquent. And then there's going to be this battle that's going to happen when we can open our doors again, that are going to be like, well, we don't have the money to pay you because we weren't operating but we can't bring anything in. So that leaves everything stagnant and puts everyone in a really bad position. So that's another huge thing right now is we need the SLA to advocate for our businesses and say, hey, we get what's going on. We're going to put everything on hold for you. We're going to freeze everything. And then when you reopen your doors, we're going to give you 30 to 60 days to try to get back in operation.
What are some of the things that reopening will depend on for restaurants and bars in the future?
What do you mean depend on?
Well,
Like what happens
do you need to
now?
see happen between now and whenever this is over, to be able to feel like you can reopen? Like right now, do you feel like you'd be able to reopen? I thought it was a really good stat that you shared that every week that you're closed, it's going to take a month to recoup.
Yeah, if the necessary um, personnel involved, as far as landlords, as far as the banks, as far as credit companies, as far as some of us with loans out there, if everyone can't step up right now and say, we understand what you're going through, we understand that this is not your choice, you're being forced to do this, we're going to back off and just take this thing week by week, month by month, if it gets into that type of timeline. And we'll figure this out when we get through it together. Right now, we all feel that we are just thrown in the water. We're barely hanging on to stay afloat because there's no life preserver coming out to us. And people are bleeding money at the moment because landlords refuse to not charge rent. They know that there's a 60 or 90-day moratorium to evictions, but that doesn't mean that we still can't be served a notice of cure, which is, hey, pay your rent, otherwise you're going to be evicted. And we need everyone to have this type of compassion right now for the fact that we're not doing this by choice. This is not, hey, we just decided to close our doors and not pay our bills. This is, hey, you have to close your doors, and you know what, you still have to pay your bills. So how are we supposed to do that? How are we supposed to operate and make that happen? And a lot of people won't take a stand because they're afraid of the consequences that are going to happen to them. They're afraid that they will be taken to court and they won't be able to afford those court fees. And what happens then? Now I have to personally be in the hole. Now I have to be personally responsible. Now I have to be dragged through the mud. So they're just bending over and saying, okay, well, whatever money we have left in the bank, either I'm going to negotiate a lower rent right now, or I'm just going to continue to pay rent. I'm going to continue to pay my bills. Like, the utilities companies haven't even stepped up and said, you know what, we're going to freeze everything in your accounts right now because we understand your doors aren't even open. So we're not going to charge you. And utilities in our world, and I'm sure a lot of you at home, how much they've gone up in the last 5 years. Just imagine that on a scale 40 times larger as a restaurant. Even our smallest location, Dolly's Swing and Dive down on North 8th, there it's smaller, but we have 8 fridges plugged in and a freezer and a walk-in box, and there's things that need to stay on while we're closed. But that's still racking up an electricity bill.
Right.
That's still
And
racking up a gas bill.
I want to mention that this is one of the reasons why we have been pushing alongside the eco-socialists for public power, because most of the utilities are owned by monopolies that they get to decide when they're going to raise the rates based on these very closed court cases, that, for example, they were building the North Brooklyn pipeline until yesterday, with the intention of raising the rates. And there was really not another concrete use for that. So we really need to be pushing for public power where utilities are treated like a public good rather than something to make money off of. This is not something for shareholders to be benefiting from, is my opinion. So I'm wondering, speaking about the public, thinking about how we can support each other and how we can move away from this kind of extraction mentality. What are some things that customers and the general public can do to support you? How can we support you at the policy level? How can we support you at the survival level? What are some things that you want to see consumers who have a favorite business or restaurant doing to help?
I think helping us have a larger voice. You know, we understand that everyone is going through this together, and we in no way at all need our coffers filled at this moment. That's not going to help. The amount of regulars that we have coming into our bar, the last thing we want to do right now is ask anyone for money. We did set up GoFundMe pages for our staff, and we're trying to take care of our staff because majority of them are tipped employees. You know, some of them can't even collect unemployment, or the unemployment that they're going to collect is going to be so low, and they're facing it even worse. Their residential uh, landlords are not understanding, and I've heard from some of my staff members, hey, you know, our landlord is basically telling us like they're going to evict us if we're not paying our rent. And I think what the general public needs to do right now is make sure that we all have a voice, because I'm sure they're going through it as well. This has gone beyond our inner walls and out into the public, and everyone is affected by this right now. I have friends who have been laid off. I also teach at the Institute of Culinary Education. I'm a guest instructor there, and the entire school has been laid off. And I know that they're going through it as well. And I think coming together right now is the most important thing, that we are not just treating this as a employee, business, owner, operator. It's all one person, and platforms like this and outlets like this where we can really get a voice out to say, hey, anything you can do, if you see a petition that makes sense to you, please sign it. Please let's get it into the proper hands. Let's make someone aware that this is not an individual situation, this is an everyone situation, and everyone needs the support and help to come in. Because the reality is, the way that I see it is, it's bad enough that I feel like we were starting to go into a little bit of a recession, but we're talking about a depression at the end of this. If everyone out there is evicted from their homes, if they can't afford to pay their mortgages, if they can't afford to pay their employees, if they can't afford to reopen their doors as business owners, we're talking about a depression here. That's really where this is going. We're talking about how many people are going to lose the things that they've worked so hard for, to put everything on the line beyond just the business. We're talking about the individuals as well. I have friends that are leaving the state right now. They're like, my landlord's not playing ball, so I just gave them my security deposit and I went to go live with my parents. That's
Mhm.
what we're facing right now. We're taking 10 steps backwards at the moment, because the stimulus package that's being sent out there there's no way in any form going to cover anything that makes sense. I've heard from a lot of people with student loans. I'm lucky enough that I don't have those anymore, but people that do, some of their student loans are being like, you know what, we can reduce your payment. And in my mind, I'm like, how is that even a thought
Right.
processes for those big companies to say that to people? Because they're not bringing in an income. So you're telling me that the minimum that they're getting from unemployment now, that they can barely buy groceries with, you're going to ask them to pay something. You know, so one of my friends was like, yeah, one of them asked me how much I can pay right now, and to me that's so absurd. That's
Right.
so
And
absurd.
and that was something Sam Himmelstein said last week that I found really soothing. He said, no matter what anyone is telling you, your money needs to primarily go to keeping you safe and healthy. Like that's it. So that means food, medical care if you need it. That is what your money is for. And anybody asking for anything more than that, we need to be like checking.
Yeah.
And the other thing that I think that you said that I really want to echo is this is more than like business or transaction or profit or loss conversations. This is about, what do we want? our society to look like. And as everything is falling apart, we actually have an opportunity to advocate loudly for the society that we want. So if we feel that small businesses are an important piece of our societal fabric, and I definitely believe that they are, that is where we meet people from our community, that is where we support each other and where we grow culture. If we believe that, we need to be working together to support that. And any kind of petitions or support that the restaurant and small business community wants to put towards me, I'm absolutely here to amplify it and to help with that. Now we're going to turn it over to the questions and comments from the participants. So I'm going to turn it over to my campaign manager and our producer for this show, Andrew. So take it away.
I like that I have a producer credit now. That's exciting. So yeah, thank you to everybody who's been participating and sending in questions. Keep them coming. There's a Q&A chat button on the bottom of your Zoom if that's where you are. If you're on YouTube, you can tag us on Twitter. You can send an email to Andrew at emilyforassembly.com. Also, just take this moment to say, for questions around even commercial leases, but also residential leases that are still ongoing because we have not gotten the kind of rent relief that we need from the state legislature, check out our virtual town hall from last week with tenants' rights lawyer Sam Himmelstein that Emily just mentioned. That whole video is at emilyforassembly.com/tenantstownhall. And there are a lot of great answers there. And finally, before I go to these questions, I just want to reiterate something Emily said at the beginning. We may not necessarily be able to answer all of these. Emily is a candidate for office. Raffaello is advocating for a particular sector of the small business community in North Brooklyn, but we will pose them, we will brainstorm them, and to the extent that we can answer them either now or after the live stream, we will do so and post those answers on social media. We have a question here from an attendee, Raffaello, and I'm curious if you have any thoughts on this. Given that food service is an essential business, CDC cleaning guidelines, this is a question, CDC cleaning guidelines seem not to be accurate for businesses that are open, but still practicing social distancing in their operations. Do you have any sense of when they'll get an update on those? And then, there's just a question here, where do we get cleaning products? This person says they need 50 times more than what they currently have. And I'm wondering if you've encountered that or if you know what folks are doing in that situation.
Yeah, I think the health regulations in New York are extremely high as to begin with. It's funny to think about this happening and then the precautionary matters that we're all taking right now. This is what we do every day. This is what we do in the bars and restaurants every day. Like our job, our responsibility is to make sure that you have a safe environment to come into. And we have our own, like chemical companies that we deal with, and we get state regulated and FDA approved kind of cleaning products. So it's a little different for us in what we need. So there are no other steps changing. I think for other businesses, like, your local wine shop that's not getting a letter grade, there are things that they're going to have to step up and do. And I think that we all just need to just kind of go to a social distancing platform. I've noticed a lot of our local cafes around the neighborhood that are still open, they're not allowing anyone to gather within their stores. And I will recommend that you don't allow somebody to wait inside of your establishment. A good friend of mine, Leaf, who owns Donna, they have a social distancing pickup platform where it's 6 feet apart from actually getting what you're picking up. So I think those are the steps that we need to take. Let's not necessarily worry about the cleaning aspect because that happens anyway, but I think we just need to be more mindful about keeping ourselves away from other people at this moment.
And if I can add, for folks that operate a different kind of business that, these cleaning supplies have not been readily available, we'll do some research and try to get that information out to you all about what can be done now, and we'll reach out and try to help with that. So any question that we can't answer here, we're going to do our best to help bring you some resources, and we'll put that on our social. Okay, thanks.
We have a question now here. I'm just going to read it verbatim. I am the founder of Earth Angel and have been hard hit, and the website is earthangel.nyc. I have been hard hit, of course, as all of our clients, films and television series have gone dark. I'm applying to the city and SBA relief programs, but I'm also trying to just generally lower expenses wherever possible. One way to do that would be to have our rent on our commercial lease temporarily suspended or heavily reduced. I have already reached out to my landlord about this, Green Desk at 67 West Street. I'm familiar with them, with no luck. They told me I can move out early with no penalty or downsize, both options which would require me to send employees out, which I am not comfortable with since I am not an essential business and can't in good conscience tell employees to leave their homes right now. So I know this is a kind of specific question around commercial tenancy, Rafat. I don't know if you have any thoughts on this. What do folks do if they are in this situation? Do you have any thoughts?
In Babar, we have had that question come up a lot. Hey, my landlord's not playing ball. Hey, this is what we're being told to do, to maybe pay part of our rent. And what I want to tell everyone behind this is what I said earlier. I think collectively as a group, as a community, we need to get together and say, I'm putting my foot down. I can't afford to pay my rent. It's not my choice to be in this direction. You need to play ball as well. And we just need to take a stand, because the one thing, again, that we do have in our corner that's kind of a bone that was thrown to us is this no eviction policy. That's going to be living for 90 days. And I think week 2 now being into this, there's more to come. And I truly want to believe in our systems, in the governmental systems that are in place. But what I can say to everyone right now is just please take a stand. Please stand up against your landlords. I understand that they have a mortgage to pay, but their mortgages are being abated. We all need to come together in this thing. And if you feel like you don't have a voice, please reach out to somebody that does. But you have to take a stand. You can't just throw away your business or decide to close your doors just because your landlord's saying, hey, we're not going to pay, we're not going to allow you not to pay rent, because they need to work with you. They have to want to see this thing run its course and you be there at the end of the day, because you're needed by other people. And you really just have to have a voice for yourself right now, until the voice from, the agencies that need to speak up come for you. You just really have to hang in there right now and not be forced and bullied by your landlord. We're not in that situation anymore. This is not a choice. This is a demand from the government. It's for everyone's safety. And you as an individual, as a business owner, just really need to take a voice for yourself right now and say, no, I'm not accepting this. I'm in this with everyone else, and this is not my choice.
Right. And I would echo also that, team up with the other, if you're in Green Desk, there's a lot of businesses in there. So if you know any other contacts in there, like team up with them. The more people that team up together, the better we're going to be. We need to be making associations and unions and guilds, if we haven't already, because that's the voice that's going to be more powerful. And also remember that for someone to evict you, it means that they're going to have to take you to court, and that's going to not be for 3 months. And then there's probably, if this is a widespread problem, there's going to be so many people trying that it's going to be a very difficult thing to do. And it's going to be a really bad look. And we have to really pay attention if the eviction stay ends. We have to really pay attention to that and watch who is taking people to court and not let them off the hook. Because the reality is that those are business owners too, and we get to decide whether or not their businesses thrive or fail, if they're taking people to court to evict you after a health crisis. So we all have to be paying attention and supporting each other.
Yeah, the majority of these landlords are management companies, and if they want the attention brought to them that during a time of suffering for everyone in the country, they decided to push people out onto the streets and to forego their businesses, then I say bring it on and let me point you out. Let me make an example out of you so that everyone else out there can see how terrible of a company that you are. If they don't want that light brought to them. And Emily, you made a great point. If you're in a co-working space and the company that's managing that refuses to give you rent forgiveness, then petition with everyone in that space, petition with everyone in that building, like start advocating. I feel like so many of us think that we don't have a voice. And yes, honestly, that's the way it was before this happened. And I'm one for getting on the side of getting people together to push for something as a whole. And that's one of the reasons why I got involved with Babar, because I felt like as an individual I didn't have a voice. But right now we need to come together as a group and stand our ground. And I kind of love the idea of this giving people to fight for a cause again. I feel like we were just kind of like swimming along with everything that was going on in New York, but I feel now that we have this advantage to create something new in the city, to kind of start all over again and say, hey, remember us, remember the small businesses, remember the individuals that make up the city. And now's the time to do it. Now's the time to come together as a one person and really push to make everyone aware that we're in this situation together. And again, it's not our choice.
Thank you. We have a question here. Do any businesses have insurance against a situation like this, or is it included as a type of force majeure? And if they are insured, is there anything we can do to force the insurers to pay if they're not? Have you looked into the insurance situation around your businesses?
Yeah, I think that's one of the most disgusting areas that I've found. And I use that word disgusting because I've got on the phone with my insurance brokers, and they don't have any power to change what the insurance companies are trying to do. I canceled one of my insurance policies before it even started last week because I got on the phone with the insurance company, and this was at no fault to my insurance agent because he's a big advocate for our businesses. And I was told by this insurance company, yeah, we can't not allow you to pay. What we can do is just cut your payment on a monthly basis in half. And sure, that was helping, but I said, what am I insuring? Because in the force majeure clause, and I used to be an attorney, so I usually look these things over really well. But when the SARS epidemic happened in this country, there was a stipulation that viruses could not be covered in any way, not under the force majeure clause in an insurance policy. And every insurance policy across the board, according to my insurance agent, does not include that. And there's now some advocacy being pushed to change that. But you're talking about, what is that going to take? A year? What is that going to take? 2 years to get someone to change that idea, to change that policy line? Force majeure isn't covered. And, a lot of our insurance agents are trying to push the insurance companies to make that a line item, but it's going to be after the fact. And right now we can't get any type of payment subsidized by the insurance companies to cover any loss because it's just not in our policies, which is a really terrible thing.
I know you covered this a little bit, Rafa. We have a question about what you're seeing in the federal bill, the $2 trillion or however much money it is now, Congressional Recovery Act, provisions specifically for small businesses that you anticipate being able to access if this does get passed, and where it comes up short.
I think it comes up short because the thing that I'm seeing most right now, and I had this conversation with a good friend of mine who owns, he's in the entertainment side of this hospitality industry with a venue. And he was asking me, do you think that it's a good idea that I start to pursue one of these zero interest loans? And unless these loans are going to be forgiven at the end of this, you're not going to be able to survive. So to me, it's like creating the housing crisis all over again. It's like, hey, here's this 0% interest loan that will need to be paid back when all this is said and done. But to me, I think, how can I go in debt when I'm already in debt? Now my doors are closed, and you're telling me that I can get this loan. One, you'd be lucky enough if you get access to it, because the phones are so overburdened by the amount of people that are calling in for this. The system that's set up right now to actually access this through the SBA is just very terrible. But to reopen your doors and then be however many thousands of dollars in debt on top of the debt that you already have incurred with the current situation, with your landlords not being forgiven, with credit companies not being forgiven, that just seems like a faulted idea to me. That seems like a faulted system that's already going to be set up. And that's the only thing that I saw. I read through the bill a little bit that I saw that was being offered to businesses was this type of zero interest loan. And to me, that's not the answer here. To me, the answer is, let's put everything on pause. Let's all be in this together, and have the government say, you know what, landlords, you're going to have to wait. You know what, mortgage companies, you're going to have to wait till we see what this thing is going to do at the end of the day. And we know that big business is going to get that money first before it even trickles down back to us. I love, the other day I saw that Cheesecake Factory is refusing to pay any of the rents, but we need companies like that. As funny as it might have seemed, we need companies like that to step up and say, you know what, I'm not going to pay my rent. And when we have these bigger companies advocating for us, that's when the little guys like us that have a couple places or one place can really win at the end of the day.
I think this you kind of covered this question, but I just want to read it because I love the way it's phrased. This is, somebody asks, if the government says we can't be open or fully open as a money-making business, why are landlords still allowed to be in the business of landlording, essentially, right? I mean, if your economic activity is halted for public health reasons, why isn't the business of being a landlord similarly halted? And I know you've kind of covered that, but I think that's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
We have another question here, which I think is probably going to be a little bit outside of what you're thinking about right now, Raf, but I do want to put it out there and promise that we're going to look into this more. We have a question from somebody who's a freelancer. Their work has dried up. Some of these freelancers are LLCs, right? You incorporate yourself as a business, as a freelancer, and they're not really sure whether as an LLC they count as a small business for whatever kinds of relief is being contemplated in Congress or at the state level. I don't know if you've thought about that issue much, but I do want to kind of put it out there because it's a great question.
Yeah, I mean, the freelancers are small businesses. I have one of my partners. He's in Copenhagen right now. He moved there 2 years ago, and he's still involved very heavily in our company. But he's a freelancer. He makes his entire living by trying to find work all the time, and we have him doing stuff for us, and we pay him, and he's paying taxes as a business. Us individually as restaurateurs, it's the same thing, right? We set up LLCs, and we're small businesses, so it's dependent on people walking through our doors to pay our bills, and if they don't, then we don't make any money. So they have the same rights. They have the same. The government has the same responsibilities to them as well, because freelancers, especially in the film industry, they help to make up a majority of the business, of the work staff, and the bigger companies try to find them. So they have all the rights too. That I would say everything that is being advocated for us with brick and mortars, the same thing is for those freelancers. I have friends who have pop-ups. They're technically a type of freelancer. There's no brick and mortar. They're still trying to sell their products, whether albeit food products or retail products. It's a type of freelancer. They don't have any business unless they decide to pop up somewhere and make that money. So they have the same exact rights.
And I just want to add that the Freelancers Union has a guide on their website for freelancers who in navigating all the COVID-19 situations. And they just announced this morning that they're going to have a grant program, which means like the issue that Raf was bringing up, you won't have to pay the money back. And the applications for that are open on April 2nd. So you might want to check out Freelancers Union for that. I know maybe that's an obvious answer, but I just wanted people to know that they're really getting out ahead of this thing. So well worth connecting over there.
So that's it for now on that's it on audience questions, and we're nearly out of time anyway. I did want to just ask one more question that I think we posed last week to Sam Himmelstein, the tenants' rights lawyer, and you've talked about this a little bit at the beginning, but let's say when and if we get through this phase of really acute crisis, and things return to something approximating normal as of February 28th or something. What do you want to see changed? I mean, how do we better anticipate a crisis like this again? Because the fact of the matter is, climate change is here and it's coming. We still live in an economy that is a casino for Wall Street. So economic panics, major crises, this is not it. We're going to get through this one, but it won't be the last one. And I'm wondering, for small businesses in particularly, how can we better prepare for the next time if we can hold on and survive now?
I think there needs to be a system set up where it's just kind of a, hey, let's push the button for what's happening right now. And by that, I mean, there needs to be the same scenario. If we go into another scenario, like mentioned, like with climate change, and say for some reason New York City gets flooded, right, and we can no longer operate. So what's happening now, I hope that the systems, as far as, okay, we're going to freeze rent, we're going to freeze your utilities, we're going to have some money allotted for your staff that you can pay them, and it's better than workman's comp, and it's better than unemployment. I think there needs to be some kind of package that gets deployed into this scenario, because we've been here before, and it's surprising to me that there were no systems set up back then. Like, this is not a new thing. The economic downturn is not a new thing, or the pandemic is not a new thing. I know this is 50 times worse than like H1N1 was a few decades ago. But I was a kid and I experienced that, and it somehow started some of those systems. But we just need the government now to step in and say, okay, here is the panic button. When we push it, this is what happens. And us as small business owners, we don't have to think about what to do or what to beg for. That there should already be these assistance programs that just pop up and say, okay, this is your life vest in this scenario, in this genre, in this ring, and this is how you're going to survive this. And we want to see you come out at the other end. We want you to continue to pay your taxes so that we can continue to run the country. That's what needs to happen from this, that somehow we need to be heard as a voice. And I hope that as community members, as business owners, that we have a voice that is looked upon and heard now, so that the systems that need to be set up can happen. And that's what needs to happen. That we don't have to think about this, that us as business owners, we don't have to get together and be like, hey, are you dealing with this? Are you dealing with that? Yes, we're all dealing with the same exact thing, but there's an answer for it. Because right now, there are no answers that can just be given to anyone. We're just trying to get creative. It's basically, we always say in our industry, it's like duct tape and twine to get through to the next thing. You're always putting a Band-Aid on something. This is not a Band-Aid that needs to be put on here. This is a solution that needs to happen so that we can continue to walk and develop and be a business and an individual as we get through this.
Thank you so much, Raphael. That's it for audience questions.
And so I would like to just say, as a concluding thought, that we've heard from Raf and we've heard from tenants that really the biggest thing that's going to help us all right now is a rent suspension. So we have a petition for rent suspension on our website that's going around on social media. Please sign and share. We have over 4,000 signatures already. We need more.
We have over 8,000 signatures.
We have over 8,000 signatures. So the more we can get on that, the better. There is a bill that Senator Gianardis put out, and Yulee New is sponsoring in the Assembly. We need to pressure our electeds to sign on as co-sponsors so it can even come to a vote. So please call your representatives. Remember, I'm just running for office. I'm not your representative yet. So call them, ask them to support this bill, tell them it's imperative so that we cover everyone. We cover small businesses, we cover undocumented people, we cover people who can't access unemployment, we cover individuals who have been laid off, we cover individuals who are frontline workers who are making minimum wage still. All of these people need to be seen and taken care of in this moment. So please sign that. Housing Justice for All has a similar bill or a similar petition. Please sign that too. You can find all of these things on our social. We'll repost them. This is a moment that we have to be working together, as Raf said. We need to be standing up for the society that we want to see. And so if you want help connecting to other businesses, please feel free to reach out. That might be something that we can help with. And we want to help you. So we're doing our best. We can't do everything. We're just regular people like you are at this point in time. But we're doing our very best to be supportive. Raf, do you have any final thoughts?
All I wanted to say was just to mention what that bill for us is called, and it's Bill S8125A. It's the big one that we're pushing, and that relates to suspending rent payments for residential tenants and commercial tenants and mortgage payments for at least 90 days right now. So that's the big one. If all of you out there, just Google it. Like Emily said, there's a petition going around. We all need to sign it. We all need.
Can you repeat that bill number, Raf?
Sure. It's S as in Sam 8125. A is in Alpha. And that's the big one right now that I think everyone needs to get behind, because it's goes beyond businesses. It's for individuals as well for residential. And it's important that we get that in the right hands and get that thing signed.
Great, thank you so much. And this whole video of this town hall will be available on our YouTube channel, hopefully by mid-afternoon.
So thanks everybody. Thanks for coming. Thanks for your questions. Thanks future watchers for tuning in. Share it. This is meant to be a resource, and we're going to keep doing these every Friday at noon. So if you have a topic that you'd like to see, please also reach out and let us know. Thanks.
Great.
Thank you.
Stay safe, everyone. Bye.
Thanks, Raf.
Thank you.